Okay, so we're just going to talk about the updated setup that we've came up with. So what we've got here is a 9-volt battery connected to a speaker, which is then connected to these two pennies. Whenever you touch them together, you get something like this. So it just connects the circuit and lifts up the speaker. And we find that this actually isn't. We didn't figure this out, but we've seen a couple of YouTube videos, and we also seen a performer whose name I can't remember off the top of my head, but I will write later on. Do this kind of thing, so you can get and if you kind of focus on it more, obviously that was just a short demonstration, you can get more of an oscillator kind of feel where you get a pitch. So everything is kind of so if we move Jason on like this, so what we've got over here is Jason's setup, and Jason will explain his setup, but I'll explain how it's coming into mine. So this is Jason's Atari machine. He's got two, so he's got a less complicated one and a more complicated one. So for more control over the sound of the more complicated Atari, we're coming into my distortion pedal and then out into the reverb pedal and then into the amp. Basically what this lets me do is control the sound that he can get to more degree. So I've got different filters, and I can also turn on and off an oscillator, which one will control like a normal distortion pedal would the sound coming out, and then the other will shape his oscillator in a different way. Yeah, and then that comes out to its own separate amp, and I think that kind of works a lot better than if they were both coming out of the one input, which they could, or one output, sorry. So then what I have, a new addition, we have slightly done away with the wah pedal, just because it doesn't really work that well with this configuration, because lots of pedals in a row and lots of noise. So basically, I'll kind of show you this. Basically, I've done quite a lot of experimenting with this unpredictable Hall of Fame reverb pedal, and what I found is that if you touch a wire, you can actually do this without. I have the wire connected just at the back here, which is this pin here of the jack, but you can touch any of these pins here to create a note, and there's a couple of pins around here that will completely mute the sound coming out of Jason's, which makes for kind of more rhythmical things, which is quite nice. This is a bit of a pain that I have to do it like this. Ideally what I would have is a button for each of these wee pins, and then like labels so that I could tell, but because of time constraints, and as well I've kind of gotten more used to it because I've been doing it for so long, and been trying so many different things.
Also for easiness, because the pins are so small, it'd be very difficult to solder.
Yeah, I will get round to it. I just need to get the right equipment and enough time. But yeah, I think that's kind of everything. You can generate white noise on some of these pins, but as I say, this is probably the most unpredictable piece of equipment I've ever worked with. Sometimes it makes siren noises, sometimes it makes sine tones, and then at every stage of this this is actually coming, the main signal from this is coming from the second Atari machine that Jason's been working on, and everything that I do here kind of overrides his signal, but it works in quite a nice way because the signal coming from his is very continuous, and I can only really make very sparse sounds, and it's because of its unpredictability. It can make some quite nice glitch sounds, which we'll demonstrate anyway. And then if we just move on to your setup.
So it starts here with the MS-20, which I have patched in to sample white noise, and the rate of the sampling is controlled by the square wave, and you can change that speed here. So that's sampling white noise, or sorry, sampling pink noise, creating completely random rhythms and sounds, much like so, or at least it should have been like so. So that's that. Also, I've got the keyboard's control voltage out and trigger going into the smaller Atari, which means I can use the keyboard on the MS-20 to play, well, I say play loosely, the second Atari, but the main Atari is this larger one, which has LDRs as well as the knobs and a button, so I can create more rhythmic melodies by using the button rather than having a continuous tone. I can also set a pitch and leave it as a drone, or I can actually play with my hands using the LDRs. The sequencer can also be used on either of the Ataris or on the MS-20, but at the minute we're not using it. But as I have put easy jacks to do it with in my briefcase, it's quite easy to do things mid music making.
Yeah, I think it's quite important to note as well that like there's two things that we have been working on, like the sequencer and then the automated wah that I was working on for a while that we aren't using at all because whenever we sat down to perform, it kind of hindered it in some way or made it so that we couldn't have full control. But yeah, do you want to do a demonstration then? Just another video.